Hey guys, what is up? It is the Fast Break Report here, bringing you guys another vlog. I don't want to go on too long about this because I feel like I go on a tangent every time I talk about this, but I do want to talk about the Toronto Raptors, but where they are as a basketball team is where I usually go on the tangent, is because they're a middle-of-the-pack basketball team, and I feel like if you're a team that's not in an ideal geographical location and you're just a middle-of-the-pack basketball team, you might as well just blow it the fuck up and tank and get your superstar player in the draft if you can get a top 5 pick, because most big name free agents don't want to come to you, and Toronto is in that situation where they have 40 wins and 40 losses. They are 12th in the NBA in offense and 11th in defense. And while they are a competitive basketball team, they are a defensive team more so than an offensive team. They have a big offseason coming up. In fact, I would argue they probably have one of the biggest offseasons of the NBA coming up out of all the teams. Them and Chicago, I think. Like, there are a couple teams that are really going to be asking themselves questions this offseason. Washington is going to be one of them. Portland's going to be one of them. Chicago is going to be one of them. And Toronto is going to be one of them. And the reason I say that is because all of these teams are middle-of-the-pack basketball teams or below-average teams. Some of these teams have a superstar player or a star player, and some of them don't. Some of them just, either the combination of players doesn't work, they're not good at something, they're good at one thing but not good at the other. And I feel like if you're a middle-of-the-pack basketball team, it's just the shittiest place to be. The same principles apply to life. You know how they always say the middle class gets fucked? Well, like, pretty much the NBA is the same way. If you're a middle-of-the-pack basketball team, you basically get fucked. You're good enough to make the playoffs, but you're not good enough to win a championship, and you're not shitty enough to get a top 5 draft pick. So to me, I just think to myself, if you're one of these middle-of-the-pack basketball teams and you got guys on expiring deals who honestly probably don't want to come back, you have to start asking yourself the question, do you start unloading everything and trading away your guys to get what you can? And I think Toronto is one of those teams that unfortunately are in that situation. Kawhi Leonard won a championship there and didn't even go back. You know what I'm saying? And while I think Toronto is a very big basketball city, much like Indiana and Toronto are, I would say, small to medium market teams. I think Indiana's a small market team, but Toronto, I think, is bigger, a bigger market. Most players simply don't want to play there. And when you're these teams, these middle of the pack, fringe teams that are good but not great, you have a very passionate fan base. And I think to myself, while fans don't want to see their teams tank, sometimes it makes sense. And Toronto's a team that has Fred VanVleet on a player option this offseason. Gary Trent Jr. is on a player option this offseason. OG Anunoby seems like he clearly doesn't want to be there. So, honestly, the question I have to ask is, if you're Toronto, do you scrap it? You know what I'm saying? Do you scrap it this offseason? Because I honestly, I feel like Fred VanVleet's going to turn down his player option. I think Fred VanVleet can make more money than the $22 million he's owed next year if he accepts his player option. Gary Trent Jr. is also a guy that I think could potentially maybe make more money. He's a guy that I think is really gonna be deciding if whether or not to bet on himself this offseason, because I think his player option's worth 18 or 19 million this upcoming season, which is about right where I think he's valued at. But it's just the idea. I feel like Toronto is going to have two of their main key players in Fred VanVleet and Gary Trent Jr. bet on themselves this offseason. And if that's the case, I really, I don't think they're coming back if that's the case. And B, I just feel like if you're Toronto, you should probably start unloading. Keep Scotty Barnes, trade Pascal Siakam for what you can get. If you can, I think Pascal Siakam can easily command 3 or 4 first-round picks. He's a very good player, all-NBA third-team player most years. I'm not sure where he sits this year, but I know he's usually a pretty solid power forward option. And OG Anunoby is another guy. He gets injured a lot. He's one of the better 3-and-D players in basketball. I can understand why Toronto would want to keep these players. Don't get me wrong, I do. If you're a Toronto Raptors fan, I completely understand the flip side of this. Oh, we keep these guys and we just continue to develop them. And I get that. Part of me really wants to see see Toronto keep these players and, let Scottie Barnes continue to develop and become the player that we think he's going to be. But he did hit kind of a sophomore slump this year. I feel like I didn't hear anywhere near as much about Scottie Barnes this year as I did last year. And I just feel like with the contract situations they've got going on, yeah, I don't think Fred VanVleet's coming back. I think Fred VanVleet's going someplace else. Where? I don't know, but somebody's gonna offer him probably way more money than that $22 million a year is, okay? Because, like I said, when he plays and when he's got it going, he's a top 5 point guard in basketball. Another guy is Gary Trent Jr. Gary Trent Jr. is another guy that I think somebody's just going to outbid Toronto for him. And, yeah, they have Jakob Poeltl. OG Anunoby is a guy that maybe you can get him and make him, he's a guy that would start for you if he doesn't get disgruntled in the offseason and demands a trade and can actually stay healthy. Like, I feel like that's OG Anunoby's biggest gripe is the idea that the guy is always fucking injured. But, this is a team that even I, as somebody making this video, I'm like, if they could hold this together for another 2 years, right? And just let Scottie Barnes continue to develop and give him more opportunity, I feel like they would be a championship team. Scottie Barnes, to me, is a guy that screams superstar potential. His wingspan is insane. He's 6'8". He's good around the basket. It's really the shooting that is his biggest issue. But I just think to myself, I don't think Toronto's going to overpay for Fred VanVleet. I just don't think they're going to. And I don't think Gary Trent Jr. is coming back. And if you're relying on the health of OG Anunoby to be what it is, I don't know. If I'm a betting man, I'm just not taking that bet. I'm not going to assume that OG Anunoby is going to play 65-plus games for you in a season. I just don't think it's going to happen. He's a very good player, but, that's the problem. You know what I'm saying? Toronto has a bunch of very good players, but they don't have any amazing players. You know what I'm saying? And unfortunately for them, I just feel like if Fred VanVleet doesn't come back and Gary Trent Jr. leaves in free agency, these are both guys that I think are going to decline their player options. If they leave, the question is, who can you replace them with, right? If you're Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet leaves and Gary Trent Jr. leaves, what are your options? You know what I'm saying? Honestly, I feel like if that happens, Pascal Siakam, I really think Pascal Siakam is asking for a trade. Mostly because, he's not getting any younger. How old is Pascal Siakam? Pascal Siakam, I think, is, 27, 28? Pascal Siakam is 29. So, he's even older than I thought he was. If you're Pascal Siakam, it's kind of do you really want to spend the next 2 or 3 years hoping this team can rebuild, what they just lost in free agency? While I do understand point guards are all over the place, it's I don't think Toronto's getting Kyrie Irving. You know what I'm saying? Kyrie Irving seems like he's going to the Lakers no matter what. I even me, when Dallas made the trade for Kyrie, I was he's going to spend the second half of his season in Dallas and he's going to Los Angeles. He wants to play with Bron. That's where he wants to go. So I don't think Dallas is keeping Kyrie, and I don't think Toronto's getting him. So it's the other question is, do you go after D'Angelo Russell in free agency? The biggest issue with this whole thing is I feel like Toronto would have to make a bunch of promises to Pascal Siakam that they're not able to keep. Okay? D'Angelo Russell, I don't think he wants to play in Toronto if he didn't want to play in Minnesota. So I don't know, man. I don't know what they can do, but I really feel like this is a team that over the summer is going to rip it down. I feel like what they're going to do is Fred VanVleet's going to leave, Gary Trent Jr. is going to leave, OG Anunoby and Pascal Siakam are two guys that are probably going to ask for a trade after that. And then once that happens, if that happens, which I think is not outside of the realm of possibility, I think you just get as many first-round picks as you possibly fucking can for Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby. Even OG Anunoby was being shopped at the trade deadline. So that's why I think all of this is going to happen. Is Fred VanVleet's going to go, Gary Trent Jr. is going to go, OG Anunoby's going to ask for a trade, or they're going to trade OG Anunoby, and then Pascal Siakam's going to be the last domino to fall. So I don't know, man. We'll have to wait and see. But Toronto is really got to ask themselves a lot of questions, and they have a lot of important decisions to make this offseason because they're going to lose a lot of, like, at least 2 really big key pieces to their team. And if I'm correct, I think Jakob Poeltl's on an expiring deal too. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty positive that he is. Jakob Poeltl is... Yeah, he's an unrestricted free agent after this year. Yeah, man, I'm just gonna call it what it is. Like, I really think they're gonna blow it up. Like, I know they went all in on the Jakob Poeltl thing in a way. Like, they needed a center and they got one. They might be able to retain Jakob Poeltl. Like, that's like the difference between him and all the other players. But I just think, like, Jakob Poeltl is not enough to win a championship, you know what I'm saying? And if he's an unrestricted free agent, somebody might offer him more money. So, I don't know. I don't know what Toronto does, but it's not looking great for the Toronto Raptors. And I have a very strong feeling that after this offseason, they're going to be a team that's going to be rebuilding. So tell me what you guys think about this down below in the comment section below. I'd love to hear your guys' opinions on this. I'd like to hear Raptors fans' opinions on this because I know Raptors fans are very plugged in on the internet with their team. Like I said, they're a passionate fan base, much like Indiana Pacers fans. They're always plugged in. Portland Trailblazers fans are the same way. They're very plugged in. So I'd like to know what you guys think is going to happen. So tell me what you guys think about this down below in the comment section below. A like helps me out. Subscribe if you guys want to see more. I'm the Fast Break Report, and I'm out of this motherfucker. Peace, guys.